My name is Diana Chen, and I've spent the last 3 years being deliberately underestimated at one of Silicon Valley's most prestigious tech firms. That's exactly how I wanted it, until today. I straightened my simple gray blazer, watching Richard Thompson, the CEO of Nova Technologies, parade around the conference room like a peacock showing off its feathers. He was in the middle of his favorite activity, taking credit for other people's work. Specifically, my work. As you can see, Mr. Harrison, Richard gestured to the complex technical diagrams on the screen. Our AI-driven security protocols are absolutely revolutionary. We've spent years developing this technology in-house. James Harrison, CEO of Global Dynamics and potentially our biggest client ever, nodded thoughtfully. His company was willing to pay $50 million for our security system, if it was as good as Richard claimed. I sat quietly in the corner, taking notes like a good secretary should. My tablet screen showed meeting minutes, but below that ran a different program. One that monitored every technical claim Richard made. The list of lies was growing impressive. And who led the development team on this? Harrison asked, his sharp eyes scanning the room. Mark Chen headed the project, Richard replied smoothly, nodding to his nephew who sat smugly at his right hand. He's our chief technology officer. I bit back a smile. Mark Chen, who couldn't code his way out of a paper bag, had been appointed CTO 6 months ago. His main qualification, being Richard's nephew. His main contribution to the company, taking credit for my innovations while relegating me to the role of executive assistant. Interesting, Harrison mused, his gaze lingering on me for a moment longer than necessary. And you're confident in the system's ability to adapt to quantum computing threats? Absolutely, Mark jumped in, eager to impress. Our neural networks use advanced algorithms too. I watched him dig his own grave as he spouted buzzwords he clearly didn't understand. 3 years of careful planning were about to pay off, and all because of men's eagerness to believe in their own superiority. My journey at Nova Technologies hadn't started as some grand scheme. I joined the company fresh from MIT with a double doctorate in computer science and quantum physics that I completed by age 26. But Richard Thompson had taken one look at my resume and decided I didn't fit his image of a tech genius. Too young, too female, too everything that didn't match his outdated worldview. We'll find something more suitable for your skills, he'd said, sliding my resume aside without really reading it. We need an executive assistant who understands enough tech to keep up with conversations. Most women would have walked out, many had. But I saw an opportunity. In a company so focused on appearances, no one would suspect the quiet secretary taking notes in the corner. No one would think twice about giving me access to every system, every meeting, every secret. After all, I was just a secretary. So I played the role. I wore muted colors, spoke softly, and kept my head down. During the day, I filed reports, scheduled meetings, and brought coffee. At night, I built the next generation of cybersecurity technology right under their noses. The men at Nova Technologies had a habit of leaving their computers unlocked around me. Why not? I was harmless, invisible. When I installed my monitoring software on their systems, they'd assumed it was a standard company update. When I accessed their files late at night, they never questioned why a secretary's credentials had such deep access. I patented my innovations quietly under a separate company I'd established. Nova Technologies had no claim to them. My contract as an executive assistant didn't include any intellectual property clauses. Why would it? No one expected the secretary to invent anything. Perhaps, Harrison interrupted Mark's technical word salad, your assistant could pull up the test results from the quantum resistance trials. My heart skipped a beat. Harrison's tone was too specific, too knowing. I pulled up the files, watching Mark's face pale slightly. We both knew those tests didn't exist, because the system he claimed to have built couldn't handle quantum computing threats. But the system I had built could. Actually, Harrison continued, his eyes fixed on me, Ms. Chen, I believe you're being rather modest about your role here. The room fell silent. Richard's head snapped toward me, confusion written across his face. Mark's smug smile frozen into a grimace. I don't understand, Richard said carefully. Diana is our executive assistant. She handles administrative duties. Harrison pulled out his tablet, a slight smile playing at his lips. Is that so? Then perhaps you could explain why she holds 3 patents fundamental to the technology you're trying to sell me. And just like that, 3 years of careful planning culminated in this perfect moment. I sat up straighter, letting the carefully constructed mask of meekness fall away. Richard's face had turned an interesting shade of purple, while Mark looked like he might faint. "This is obviously some mistake," Richard stammered, but Harrison was already pulling up documents on the main screen. "Patent number 10,459,876. Harrison read aloud. "Neural network architecture for quantum-resistant cybersecurity systems. Inventor, Diana Chen, PT. Filed 3 months ago." He looked around the room. "Shall I continue with the other 2 patents? Or should we discuss why Nova Technologies is attempting to sell me technology it doesn't actually own?" The next few moments would change everything at Nova Technologies. But before Richard could sputter out another denial, before Mark could concoct another lie, my tablet chimed with an incoming email. The sound cut through the tension like a knife, drawing everyone's attention. I glanced at the screen, allowing myself a small smile. Perfect timing. "Mr. Thompson," I said, my voice clear and confident for the first time in 3 years, "I believe the SEC just received some very interesting documentation about Nova Technologies' business practices. Would you like me to pull that up on the main screen as well?" Part 1 ends with Richard's world crumbling around him, but the full extent of my plan was yet to be revealed. The next phase would show them exactly what happens when you underestimate the quiet ones, the ones you dismiss as just a secretary. The real question wasn't whether I would take control of Nova Technologies. It was how much of the company would be left once all my evidence came to light. The next 15 minutes in that conference room redefined corporate power dynamics at Nova Technologies. Richard Thompson, the man who dismissed my credentials 3 years ago, sat slumped in his chair as James Harrison methodically dismantled his empire. "Let's review what we've learned," Harrison said, his tone carrying the weight of 2 decades in corporate leadership. "You're attempting to sell me technology patented by your secretary, technology that, based on these timestamps, was developed while you had her filing paperwork and bringing coffee. She must have stolen it," Mark blurted out, desperation making him reckless. "She had access to our systems." I pulled out a small USB drive. "Interesting theory, Mark. Should we review the video footage from last month when you tried to hack into my personal server? The one where you admitted on camera that you couldn't understand the base code." Security cameras were funny things. People forgot they recorded audio too, especially late at night when they thought no one was listening. Mark's face went from red to white in record time. "The board needs to hear about this immediately," Richard declared, reaching for his phone. His hand was shaking. "Oh, they already have," I said quietly, sliding my tablet forward. "Along with the SEC, as I mentioned. Would you like to see what else they received in the last hour?" The screen filled with documents, financial records, email threads, recorded meetings. 3 years of meticulous documentation showing every instance of fraud, every stolen innovation, every manipulated report. Richard had been so busy watching for external threats that he never noticed the greatest threat was the woman he forced to sit quietly in the corner. "How?" Richard's voice cracked. "How did you get all this?" "You gave me access," I replied simply. "Executive assistants manage everything, remember? We file the reports, schedule the meetings, maintain the records. We're trusted with passwords because we're not seen as threats. We're given complete access because we're considered, what was the word you used last week? Ah yes, harmless." Harrison leaned forward, his interest purely professional now. "Ms. Chen, I'd like to modify my company's offer. Instead of licensing Nova's technology, which we now know isn't actually Nova's technology, I propose a direct partnership with you and your company." "What company?" Richard interrupted, trying to regain some control. "She doesn't have." "Quantum Shield Industries," Harrison cut in smoothly. "Founded 2 years ago, currently holding 5 patents in advanced cybersecurity. A company that, until today, had no public face, just a brilliant technical team and some very impressive technology." I nodded, finally letting myself enjoy the moment. A company that's about to acquire significant assets from Nova Technologies once the SEC investigation concludes. The door opened and 3 men in suits entered. "Mr. Thompson," one said, flashing credentials. "SEC. We need to speak with you immediately." As Richard was led out, Harrison turned to me. "You've been planning this for a while, haven't you?" 3 years, 2 months, and 14 days, I confirmed. The exact amount of time it took to build an ironclad case while developing technology that could actually deliver what Nova promised its clients. Mark stood up shakily. "This is ridiculous. You can't just." "Mark," I interrupted gently, "you should check your email. The board just voted to suspend all executive functions pending investigation. Your access to company systems has been revoked." I paused. "Though I should mention that unreleased gaming app you've been developing on company time. The one you thought no one knew about. I took the liberty of patching some security holes." "You're welcome." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Board members arrived for an emergency session. SEC investigators combed through offices. Employees gathered in clusters, whispering as years of corporate hierarchy crumbled around them. I sat in my old desk outside Richard's office, now taped off as a crime scene, and watched it all unfold. Jenny from accounting stopped by, wide-eyed. "Did you really plan all this? The whole time?" "Not at first," I admitted. "Initially, I just wanted to prove myself. But then I saw how many talented people were being suppressed here, how many innovations were being stolen by Richard and his inner circle." I gestured to the patents displayed on Harrison's tablet. "These aren't just my inventions. Sarah from R&D contributed to the quantum resistance protocols. Mike in A helped refine the neural network architecture. They just needed someone to recognize their work." Harrison found me there as evening fell. "The board has a proposition for you," he said without preamble. "They want to avoid a complete collapse. With Richard and his associates removed, Nova Technologies needs new leadership. Someone who understands both the technology and the people." I smiled. "They want to appoint the secretary as CEO. They want to appoint the brilliant strategist who outmaneuvered one of tech's most entrenched power structures," he corrected, "while building revolutionary technology and apparently inspiring fierce loyalty among the staff. Half the employees I've interviewed have stories about how you quietly helped their careers while maintaining your cover." I looked around the office, my office now, I suppose. "What about Global Dynamics' offer?" "Still stands. A partnership between our companies, with you at the helm of Nova. Assuming you accept the board's offer." I stood up, smoothing my simple gray blazer one last time. "First, there need to be some changes. Complete restructuring of the hierarchy. Review of all patents and innovations to credit the actual inventors. Profit sharing with the development teams." I met his eyes. "No more stealing credit. No more suppressing talent." Harrison grinned. "I think you'll make those changes happen. You've certainly proved you know how to transform a company from the inside out." Later that night, as I packed up my executive assistant's desk, I found the original resume I'd submitted 3 years ago. Double doctorate, published research, academic honors, all dismissed because I didn't fit someone else's image of success. I pinned it to the wall of the CEO's office, my office, as a reminder. Not of the discrimination I'd faced, but of the power of being underestimated. Sometimes the greatest advantage is having people believe you're harmless. News of Nova's transformation rocked the tech world. Secretary to CEO. Silicon Valley's greatest coup read the headlines. Interviews and profiles followed, all trying to understand how I pulled it off. But the real story wasn't in the dramatic boardroom confrontation or the SEC investigation. It was in the quiet moments over 3 years. The late nights gathering evidence, the careful building of alliances, the strategic patience of waiting for exactly the right moment to strike. Richard and Mark both faced criminal charges for securities fraud and intellectual property theft. The investigation revealed similar schemes stretching back years, other innovations stolen, other careers destroyed. But they'd never again underestimate a mere secretary. 6 months later, I stood at a podium, announcing Nova Technologies' merger with Global Dynamics. The company had doubled in value under my leadership. But more importantly, it had transformed into what it always should have been, a place where innovation was rewarded regardless of title or background. Success isn't always about being the loudest voice in the room, I told the assembled press. Sometimes it's about being the quietest, the most observant, the most prepared. Sometimes the real power lies in letting others underestimate you, right up until the moment you show them exactly how wrong they were. James Harrison, now my business partner, approached after the press conference. Any regrets? About spending 3 years pretending to be less than you are. I thought about the lessons learned, the strength found in being underestimated, the satisfaction of finally revealing the truth. No regrets, I said firmly. Some people spend their whole lives demanding respect. I learned it's more effective to quietly earn it, while making sure those who withhold it face the consequences of their mistake. My phone buzzed. A message from Sarah in R&D about a new innovation her team was developing. Under the new Nova Technologies, she'd been promoted to head of research, her talents finally recognized. Similar stories echoed throughout the company as previously suppressed talent emerged into the light. Looking out over the city from my office, my real office, earned through skill rather than inheritance or manipulation, I smiled at the framed newspaper headline on my wall. Just a secretary. Think again. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from fighting the system head-on, but from quietly working within it, gathering strength, building evidence, and waiting for precisely the right moment to show your true power. Richard and Mark learned that lesson too late. As for me, I kept the simple gray blazer hung in my closet as a reminder, not of the role I've been forced to play, but of the power that comes from being underestimated. After all, sometimes the deadliest force in any room is the quiet one in a corner. The one everyone else forgets is there. The secretary who became CEO. The assistant who became the boss. The woman who turned 3 years of discrimination into the perfect revenge. But my favorite title? Simply, Diana Chen, the one they should have taken seriously from the start.